There's a sandwich in a bag. There's a hose. You can get some water for. Yeah. He'll be back at 6 o'clock.
Nothing stays the same forever, not even Pawn Stars. For more than 15 years, the same faces turned a small Las Vegas pawn shop into one of the biggest reality shows in television history. But today, that legendary lineup has been changed forever. What happened to the cast that built the empire? And where are they now after years of personal tragedies, life-changing decisions, and shocking departures? Join us as we uncover where every Pawn Stars cast member is today, and how much their lives have changed since the show first made them famous. Rick Harrison. Over the past several years, Rick Harrison has become famous in a way that even longtime Pawn Stars fans probably never expected. Across social media, his face is attached to one of the internet's most recognizable memes. The phrase, "the best I can do is," has been used countless times as the punchline to jokes about impossible negotiations and ridiculously low offers. Millions of people who have never watched a single episode of Pawn Stars instantly recognize the meme, making it one of the show's biggest sources of new exposure. Ironically, the joke has introduced an entirely new generation to Rick Harrison. After spending more than 15 years as one of cable television's most recognizable personalities, his image continues to spread across the internet, not because of new episodes, but because of a negotiation style that became part of pop culture. While the meme continues to circulate, Rick has also been expanding beyond traditional television. In January 2025, he and longtime friend and co-star Austin Chumlee Russell launched a podcast called Pawn After Dark. Recorded inside the gold and silver pawn shop, the podcast gave them something they had never fully enjoyed on network television: complete creative freedom. Without producers shaping conversations or network executives deciding what could or couldn't be discussed, Rick and Chumlee were able to share stories, answer fan questions, and talk about life both inside and outside the pawn business in a much more relaxed setting. For someone who had spent well over a decade working within the structure of reality television, the move felt like a natural next step. The audience that had followed Rick through years of Pawn Stars was now able to connect with him in a completely different format. Even as he explored new projects, Pawn Stars itself isn't coming to an end. In December 2025, the History Channel confirmed that new episodes would begin filming in early 2026, with the next season expected to premiere in early 2027. Rick Harrison and Chumlee would once again return as central figures, continuing a series that had become one of the network's longest-running and most successful programs. Although the show would move forward without its full original cast for the first time, its foundation remained firmly in place. So, if Rick is staying in Las Vegas and staying on television, what happened to the son who spent his entire life working in the shop right beside him? And why did Corey Harrison end up in Mexico? Corey Harrison. Corey Harrison has been part of Pawn Stars since day one, which makes sense because he has been part of the gold and silver pawn shop since he was 9 years old. He started working at the shop at age 9 and spent years pushing for a real ownership stake before securing a 5% partnership in Season 7. The negotiation for that ownership stake, which played out across multiple seasons of the show, with the tension of a son trying to establish his professional identity inside his father's business, was one of the more genuinely compelling storylines in the Pawn Stars universe. He lost a stunning 192 pounds after learning he was pre-diabetic. He told Good Morning America that he was literally driving home from the doctor's office, freaked out about it, when he saw a place that did lap band surgeries, pulled in, and asked what it took to have the procedure. The weight loss transformed not just how he looked, but how he was able to move through the world physically. It was one of the more visibly dramatic personal changes that any cast member went through during the show's run. In September 2024, Corey Harrison moved to Tulum, Mexico. He launched his own podcast from there in July 2025. The move was a significant departure from the Las Vegas world he had grown up in, and the podcast gave him a platform to operate from his new base, while maintaining some connection to the audience he had spent 16 years building. And then, in early 2026, everything almost went catastrophically wrong. While in Tulum for his father's wedding in early 2026, Corey was in a motorcycle accident that fractured 11 ribs, punctured a lung, and caused internal bleeding. He checked himself out of a Playa del Carmen hospital against medical advice over cost concerns and eventually had life-saving surgery in Merida. A GoFundMe was launched to cover more than $100,000 in medical bills. When the History Channel confirmed in December 2025 that Pawn Stars would return with Rick and Chumlee as the featured co-stars, Corey Harrison said during a phone call from Mexico that nobody had told him anything about the development. Learning through a phone call that your replacement on the show your family built is confirmed, and official is not the kind of news that lands gently, regardless of how the relationship between father and son is otherwise described. Despite surviving one of the worst accidents of his life, Corey now finds himself rebuilding from Mexico, while the show that helped make him famous prepares to move on without him. Now, here is the cast member whose story went in the most dramatic direction during the show's run, and who somehow ended up as the most stable version of himself by 2026. So, what is Chumlee actually doing? Chumlee. If you had watched the early seasons of Pawn Stars and tried to predict which cast member would end up owning a candy store and co-hosting a podcast with Rick Harrison by 2026, Austin Chumlee Russell would not have been the obvious choice. He was the comedic relief, the guy who paid too much for things, the one who got pranked repeatedly and seemed to take it in good humor that was sometimes genuine and sometimes clearly not. He was beloved by the audience and occasionally treated as something slightly less than that by his castmates. The Harrison family kept him on after a 2016 arrest that could have ended everything for him. He responded by undergoing gastric sleeve surgery and losing 160 pounds. He married Olivia Rademan in Hawaii in August 2019. He opened Chumlee's Candy in the Pawn Plaza. Every one of those things, taken individually, is a significant life development. Together, they add up to a character arc that is more complete and more genuinely satisfying than most of what reality television produces. Back in 2016, police arrested him after finding illegal drugs and an unregistered weapon at his home. He agreed to 3 years of counseling and probation. The arrest was the lowest point of his public life, the moment that looked like it might end his television career and do significant damage to his personal one. He did the counseling. He served his probation and kept showing up. The weight loss was substantial enough that longtime viewers of the show sometimes did not immediately recognize him in photographs from 2020 onward. 160 pounds is a transformative amount of weight to lose, and the physical change was matched by what people who knew him described as a corresponding shift in his general outlook and his engagement with his own life. By 2025, he was co-hosting the Pawn After Dark podcast with Rick. The podcast put the two of them together in a format that gave them more creative freedom than the television show ever had, allowing for longer conversations and more personal content than a cable network's format constraints would have accommodated. Chumlee's Candy on the Boulevard remains open in Las Vegas, operating as a legitimate business that he built from the platform the show gave him, rather than simply trading on his celebrity name. The candy store is not a passive investment. He is involved with it the way people are involved with businesses they actually care about, rather than businesses they attach their names to for licensing income. The show is coming back in 2027, and he is co-starring in it alongside Rick. Of the 4 original cast members, Chumlee's trajectory, from the 2016 arrest, through the weight loss, through the marriage, through the candy store, through the podcast, to a confirmed return to television, is the most complete story of rebuilding that the Pawn Stars universe has produced. The character who was never supposed to be taken seriously ended up being one of the 2 people the show cannot continue without. The man who loved him most, who was present in every episode of the show for its first 9 years, and who died before the show had finished its run, is the person whose absence the show has never fully recovered from. So who was Richard Harrison, and what did losing him do to the family and the show? The old man. Richard Benjamin Harrison was 77 years old when Pawn Stars premiered in 2009. He was the patriarch of the Harrison family, the founder of the gold and silver pawn shop, and the character that the show was quietly built around, even when it appeared to be built around Rick's negotiating skills and Chumlee's comedic energy. He was a Navy veteran who had served on the USS Ranger and the USS Ticonderoga before leaving the military and eventually settling in Las Vegas, where he opened the gold and silver pawn shop in 1989 with a small amount of money and a willingness to take a risk on a concept that most people in his position would not have attempted. The shop became a genuine institution in Las Vegas long before any television network knew it existed. His presence on Pawn Stars was not that of a performer trying to entertain an audience. He was a man in his late 70s being filmed, doing what he had been doing for decades, sitting in the shop, opining on things, telling stories, and occasionally making the other cast members look ridiculous with a well-timed observation. The audience loved him with the specific warmth that people feel for someone who reminds them of their own grandparent, who tells the truth in the particular blunt way of someone who is old enough not to care about softening it, and who is clearly the center of gravity around which everything else in the room organizes itself. He passed away on June 25, 2018. Rick wrote on Instagram that he would be tremendously missed by their family, the team at Gold and Silver Pawn, and his many fans the world over. He called him his hero and said he was fortunate to get a very cool old man as his dad. He said his father had lived a very full life and, through the History television show, had touched the lives of people all over, teaching them the value of loving family, hard work, and humor. The show continued after his death. It continued for 6 more years, producing hundreds more episodes, spinning off into Pawn Stars Do America, generating a podcast, and now preparing to film again in 2026. But the quality of the show in its earliest seasons, the one that had produced the cultural resonance that made it a global phenomenon, was inseparable from his presence in it. He was not a cast member who could be replaced. He was the reason the family dynamic that made the show work was the specific family dynamic it was. Without him, the show kept going. It never quite found the same emotional center. Richard Harrison left behind a legacy that could never truly be replaced. But he wasn't the only member of the Harrison family whose story became part of Pawn Stars history. So who was Adam Harrison? And why did his passing resonate so deeply with fans of the show? Adam Harrison. Although many viewers knew him primarily as Rick Harrison's son, Adam Harrison was, for a time, connected to the world of Pawn Stars and appeared on the show during its early years. Unlike his father Rick, his grandfather Richard Old Man Harrison, or his brother Corey, Adam never became one of the program's main personalities. His appearances were brief and infrequent, and he generally stayed out of the spotlight, while the rest of his family embraced life in front of the cameras. According to members of the Harrison family, Adam had worked at the pawn shop before the show became a worldwide success. However, once filming began, he stepped away from the business and eventually followed a different path. While other members of the family built television careers and became household names, Adam deliberately avoided the fame that came with the series. That decision meant many longtime viewers knew very little about him, and newer fans were often unaware that Rick Harrison had another son. Because Adam rarely appeared on television and stayed out of the public eye, speculation about his relationship with the family occasionally surfaced online. However, there was little evidence of any major family conflict. Instead, those close to the Harrisons indicated that Adam simply preferred a quieter life, one that was separate from the constant filming schedules, interviews, and public attention that came with starring on a hit reality show. His name returned to headlines under heartbreaking circumstances in January 2024, when news broke that Adam had died at the age of 39 from what authorities later determined to be an accidental fentanyl overdose. The tragedy shocked fans of Pawn Stars, many of whom had never realized Rick Harrison had another son. Rick later spoke publicly about the devastating loss, describing the pain of losing a child and using the opportunity to raise awareness about the growing fentanyl crisis affecting families across the United States. Following Adam's death, tributes poured in from fans and friends who offered condolences to the Harrison family. While he had never sought the spotlight in the same way as the rest of his relatives, his passing reminded viewers that there was another member of the Harrison family whose story had largely unfolded behind the scenes. Now, let's talk about the show because the show itself has been through multiple versions of itself across its run. So, what does the Pawn Stars universe actually look like now, and what is coming in 2026? Pawn Stars in 2026. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop at 713 Las Vegas Boulevard South is still there. It has always been there, which is easy to forget when discussions of the show focus on the cast, the drama, and the various personal histories that have developed across 16 years. The shop was the reason everything else existed, and the shop outlasts every production hiatus, and every cast change, and every personal crisis that the people associated with it have been through. By 2026, the shop remains one of the most photographed buildings in Las Vegas. Tourists still line up to see the counter where Rick Harrison made deals, where the old man offered perspective, and where Chumlee made people laugh. The reality television platform is responsible for the cultural mythology attached to a pawn shop, which is not a category of business that typically generates cultural mythology. New episodes of Pawn Stars began filming in early 2026, with the season expected to premiere in early 2027. Rick Harrison and Chumlee are confirmed as co-stars. The upcoming season will mark the first time in the show's history that it moves forward without Corey Harrison as a principal cast member. The History Channel confirmed the return in December 2025 after the show had been on indefinite hiatus following its most recent batch of episodes. The question of why Corey is not in the returning cast has not been answered with the kind of detail that would settle the question cleanly. What is documented is that he had moved to Mexico in September 2024, that he launched his own podcast from there in July 2025, and that when the History Channel confirmed the show's return in December 2025, he found out about it from a phone call rather than from a conversation with his father or the production. Those facts together suggest that the separation between him and the show's future was not the result of a formal negotiation that produced a clean departure, but rather something that happened more gradually and with less explicit communication than the situation probably deserved. After 16 years, countless deals, unforgettable moments, heartbreaking losses, and lives changed forever, Pawn Stars is entering a brand new era. Rick and Chumlee are carrying the franchise forward. Corey is building a new life in Mexico. The old man's legacy continues to define the shop. And Adam Harrison's memory remains a reminder that not every member of the Harrison family chose life in the spotlight. The faces may have changed, but the story of Pawn Stars is still being written. Which Pawn Stars cast member do you think changed the most over the years, and why? If the old man were still here today, do you think Pawn Stars would feel completely different? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.